Well, Cassandra, thank you so much for joining me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here. And for me, it is such an honor to have you on the podcast and just to have this amazing conversation today, which I can share with everyone. So I'm going to hand over to you. Why don't you just tell me a bit about yourself, how you got started and what you do?
Awesome. So thank you so much for having me first. I feel like our schedules finally aligned and we're able to get this done and something magical will then happen. So as you mentioned, I'm Cassandra Shuck. I am an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, as I like to call it. I have had and started multiple businesses in my time. My oldest, kind of like my children, is one of my favorites, I could say. It's a marketing agency for female entrepreneurs. We serve women around the globe from, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, India, Bali, wherever, all over the US and Canada, Mexico. And we basically do website design, logo design, and graphics as our kind of main core strengths. Out of that, which I'm sure we'll get into the story a little bit more, I've actually spiraled into more of the business strategy, business coaching side of the world, not knowing that I was doing it for the first 8 years of the marketing agency absolutely for free. And then I own a lactation cookie company and a yoga studio as well.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yes. And live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and have an almost 2-year-old. So
oh, bless.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the pictures on Instagram. She is so adorable. She is absolutely lovely.
When you have a little girl, it's like exactly the way that you were as a child, and like you can't get mad at certain things because I'm like, oh, you're headstrong, and you're like, she's a replica of me. She really is.
Yeah. Oh, bless her.
For better or for worse.
You also have your own podcast. That's the Aligned Profit and Impact podcast. Is that right?
I do. Yes. So Aligned Profit Impact is kind of the framework that I teach from. It's the framework that I've helped my women become successful in their businesses rather quickly, as well as launch and grow my businesses. So kind of turned it into a podcast, and it's honestly me talking business strategy. I have a lot of women who tune in with like notebooks and will literally write notes and get free coaching from the podcast.
That's fantastic. And what we'll do is we'll link the Aligned Profit Impact podcast. We'll link it to the show notes so everybody can go and have a look there. Because I know Cassandra has got some fantastic value that she gives to everybody. So definitely go and have a look. And then from your point of view, apart from you obviously empowering female entrepreneurs, I always find that everybody has a starting point somewhere. And I think this is one of the things that inspires so many women, in particular, who's possibly either thinking of taking that leap of faith in starting their own business, or in particular, women who are already in business, but maybe they're just stuck at a certain point, or they're not quite sure how to take the next steps forward. So how did you get started? What was the motivation between you starting your business?
Oh, goodness. That's a really long story. So I actually started my business, my first one, at age 7. And like when I say that, people are like, oh, like a lemonade stand, right? And I'm like, it was a little bit bigger than that. I actually built a jewelry company, and I had wholesalers kind of throughout a couple different cities in New York. And I was 7. I ran that business from 7 to 9, and honestly made a couple $1,000s a year, which for a 7-year-old is like, you're a multimillionaire. Like you can buy anything at the candy or toy store. So that's kind of where I got my start. I actually bounced. I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I kind of followed that trajectory that is kind of pushed upon you as like the wise path and the right thing to do. So I went to college, I went to university, I got my master's degree, and I actually worked in corporate for a really decently long time. And until I realized I was completely unhappy, completely drained. Like I was going to work in a black pantsuit, like full stiletto heels, full makeup. And I'm like, this is not the way I want to live. So that's actually how I launched the marketing agency. Pretty quickly out of that, I literally walked into my boss's office one day, and it was a multinational automobile company. And I said, I quit. And he laughed at me. He's like, you're not quitting. He's like, who would quit this job that you have at this age with this salary, with this free car? And I'm like, I'm quitting. And he said, literally, it was a conversation where he kept laughing. And I said, this is my 2 weeks notice. I said, here are my car keys for my corporate car. And that's how Tola got started.
Yeah. And when you started Tola Marketing, did you started doing all yourself, or did you have any kind of idea, concept, or is it something that you've already started on the sideline while working full time? How did that evolve for you?
So I would say about 10% I actually started on the sideline, but I
Mm.
started out solo as a solopreneur. I
Yeah.
am really good at what I like to say, collecting people kind of as I've gone throughout my journey. So now my entire development and design team is actually based off of the design team that I had at the car company. So I kind of
Oh,
said, hey,
okay.
you're really good at this. Like, do you like where you're working? And, oh, my whole team is women. So she's like, oh, they're like, I don't know. Like, it pays the salary, like, it's good money, but there was no passion behind it, as not as much
Yeah.
passion as us women can have. So I just kind of have collected people and have grown it organically via that way. But I started honestly as a solopreneur, keeping really close to those connections I had at corporate.
Yeah, amazing. And then if I can ask, tell me a little bit about Milk and Cookies, because when I saw the
Yeah.
name, I just thought that is so brilliant. It's such a great name. So how did you get into that?
Yeah, totally. So I was a labor support doula. I actually had a stillborn about 9 years ago and
Mhm.
got into bereavement and infant loss doulaing and helping mamas. And I moved into then labor support. Well, when I had my daughter, I had every issue imaginable breastfeeding. And it was something that I really, really wanted to do, especially from that connection piece and that energetic piece. And like, I knew there was a special bond there that I wanted to like have and create.
Mm.
So it didn't work. I had a really, really long, exhausting labor, ended up in C-section after 2.5 days of laboring.
My gosh.
And literally, my breast milk took about a week and a half to come in. So
Wow.
just, it's supposed to come in 2 to 3 days, and mine took like almost triple the amount of time. So I was eating like the quote unquote standard ideal breastfeeding diet. So like lots of salmon, lots of walnuts, lots of things in omega 3s, like all the spinach. I'm like spinach for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. Like just exactly what like all doctors and things tell you to eat to help with breast milk. And it didn't, it worked. It eventually came in. But then honestly, by about month one, I was just sick and tired of salmon and spinach for 3 meals a day. I love both of them, but like not multiple times a day. So I ended up, my husband's a place with food. He's a food scientist. He's baked cookies since he was in college. He used to bake them for all the girls on campus. So we actually kind of merged what I knew about breastfeeding support and what my experience was with like testing things out and seeing what really, really worked for the long
Mm.
term. And then what he knows from a food side, and we kind of birthed that company. It started out as an accident. We literally gave it to a bunch of women, and they were like, "These are the best cookies ever. They taste amazing." And they're like, everything hurts. Like my milk is coming in. It's so plentiful. Like they're doubling and tripling their output. So that they're like, where can we buy them? And of course, owning a marketing agency, I'm like, give me 5 minutes and I'll throw up a like janky landing page and go from there. And now
And
it's a
how
couple thousand a week.
and how long ago has that started? I mean, how long has that been running now?
So it'll be 2 years next February. So it's about a year and a
Wow.
half. It's
Yeah.
still a baby. It's still a baby business. But it is
Yeah.
actually retiring my husband. So my husband will leave his full-time job actually in April of next year and actually take care of that full-time as well as some of the other businesses that I run.
That's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And what I'll do is we'll link to Milk and Cookies in the show notes as well, because I know the majority of my viewers are also females,
Yes.
women. So if any of you have any of the same issues, please go and check out Milk and Cookies. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, the
So,
blog post has a ton of good information, and I'll throw up a promo code too as well if there's any US,
fantastic.
or we're shipping to US and Canada, so we haven't mastered the art of shipping internationally for a food product quite yet.
No, that's fine, because the majority of my viewers are anywhere in the US. So
Oh,
we'll
nice.
definitely, yeah. So we'll definitely link to that. We'll, like Cassandra said, we'll get a little promo code there for anybody who's interested. It's going to be fantastic. The other thing is when you started your business, I mean, there's so many challenges that everybody goes through, and everybody's unique. Everybody's got their own set of challenges, but in some sense, there's some ways people can always relate to those challenges. So for you in particular, are there a couple of challenges that you, when you started your business, or some of, I don't want to say mistakes, because mistakes and challenges can be, seen as the same thing.
Learning opportunities.
Exactly. So is there anything that you wanted to go through, that you wanted to say what it was a challenge for you, or a lesson that you've learned, and that do you want to talk us through it?
So literally hundreds of them come to mind. There's not just one. I'm like, oh goodness, we can go a lot of different ways with this. But what immediately comes to mind is the marketing agency. For me, I always was taught to niche down. Like, that's what's preached kind of in the business world and what's preached in the entrepreneurship world. Yeah. And I niched down too far to start. So I started as a marketing agency for yoga studio owners. And guess what? There's not a lot of money in, guys.
Yeah.
Yoga studio owners. So I would be pitching, a $1,200 or $1,500 website, fairly low cost, and they would ask to make 12 payments on it. Like, that's $100 a month. Like, I spend more to get my hair done. Like,
yeah.
So I actually niched down too far to start, and then I kind of expanded out from that piece to yoga studio owners and health conscious entrepreneurs, because I was getting Reiki masters and massage therapists and doulas and midwives and energy workers and you name it, kind of in that health and wellness space, nutritionists. And then I actually spiraled out to all female entrepreneurs. Once I kind of got a grasp on my kind of mid-size market, I was able to expand it to a larger market. Yeah. So I would say niche down, but don't niche down too far, because that's kind of one of the biggest pieces that my revenue for the first couple of years was, under 100K, fairly small. And then once I opened it up to hit past that yoga studio owners, that's when it kind of spiraled and took off and tripled one year and quadrupled the next.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the more important pieces that I think is a little bit not standard from the typical things that are preached right now.
Yeah.
That I've firsthand experienced.
That's fantastic. No, that's a great lesson to learn. So if you're at any point in your business where you're feeling maybe you've niched down a little bit too much, take Cassandra's advice and just look at the overall thing, and maybe see if you need to broaden out a little bit, and, just stretch the horizon and reach out to a couple of more people. Now, there's a couple of things that we've got here that we want to talk about, a couple of topics that you've kindly put together for us. And the first thing I want to introduce is, you were talking about the art of pivoting in your business. Tell us a little bit about that and expand on that a little bit more, please.
Yeah, of course. So it kind of goes along a little bit with niching down. So I feel like once I went to school for traditional entrepreneurship. I have a degree in entrepreneurship. They tell you that you have to create this business plan and this elaborate business plan and have everything in line and follow that plan like to a T of exactly what you're going to sell, exactly how you're going to sell it, like to hit those financial projections that are on paper. And I just like to call a little bit of bull on that, just for the sheer fact that, like, when people have these like staunch business plans in their business and they kind of walk the path that they think is going to work, it may not actually be the path that is working for their business, because they kind of get blinders on when they have these documents and when they have these projections and when they go through these courses and studies and business planning sessions and kind of like all the things. They say, okay, this is what's going to work, and I don't see anything else. They don't see the fact that, like, maybe their industry is changing. They don't see the fact that, like, maybe another industry is really asking for what service they provide, and that's like a natural expansion for them. So that's kind of where I say, like, you have to kind of have a really wide range view of what's going on, but then be able to pivot. So, like, for instance, if all of a sudden, I don't know, a company says, or like a governing body in food says, lactation cookies aren't good anymore, what can we do? Do we close down the company, or do we pivot and say lactation cookies aren't good, but lactation granola is going to be the next best thing? Yeah. Like, you have to have like that purview and be able to kind of quickly like pivot from one point, like stand your ground. If you look at pivoting too, in like a traditional like sports mentality sense, you have one foot grounded and then you have the other foot free to move back and forth. So you have your one foot grounded on like your actual business of what you're supposed to be doing. And then your other kind of piece is looking around to see what's next, looking around to see what's expansion.
Yes.
So it's kind of my little elevator pitch on pivoting.
No, that's fantastic. Actually, I've got a good example as well, if you don't mind me sharing it.
Yeah, please.
It's recently, actually, I had a newsletter that went out to everybody on my email list, and I was telling the story, which is actually I found a little farmer that is not too far from us, and he always used to have excess milk. So he decided to open up a little ice cream parlor, just converted a little area in his barn, open up an ice cream parlor, and just started using this milk and making ice creams. And the business just boomed. He didn't expect it. So then he started realizing that and this was over the summertime now, especially with the school holidays. So he started using or utilize his farm a little bit more in order to have these kind of ice cream parties for kids. And then he used to get a bunch of kids together and he used to show them how to milk cows and how to make their own ice cream and how to flavor their own ice cream and all those kind of things. And the media caught on and it just absolutely expanded. And he only started this about 5 months ago. And I happened to meet Mr. Andrews and his wife, and I asked them, did they ever think that this would happen for them? And he said, all I wanted to do was to use the excess milk that my cows were producing. But it just shows, as another example, by, like you say, the art of pivoting your business. He just started using or looking for other ways in order to not just expand the ice cream parlor, but also utilize his farm a little bit more. And over the summer, he said he's never been so busy as he's been this past summer. It has just been fantastic. So I completely agree with what you're saying. And it happens everywhere. We just need to be more open-minded to it.
No, and if you look at that too, like that takes his business to a whole new level of like expansion, because then he can get into kids' parties and hay rides, and maybe he throws a pumpkin patch in there for fall. Like it just kind of spirals into something that, he's like, I just wanted to get rid of extra milk. Like for me, like I just wanted to I wanted to be able to breastfeed. Did I know I would help thousands and thousands of women? Absolutely not. But am I really thankful? Absolutely. We get handwritten notes all the time, like from something that I literally made a product for myself. And I feel like kind of going down that path, your client, I like to say, is always a former version of you. So like your mindset when you were in that situation, like granted, he just wanted to get rid of milk, but I guess I would venture to say that maybe as a child, he had a really cool family farm connection, or maybe they went like blueberry picking around. Like there was something that spurred back into him to get that excitement back up in his business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Next time I'm talking to him again, I'll definitely ask him.
I know. I'm like, I want to know his story more too.
I know. Well, maybe I'll keep you all updated.
And what's next too, like, it's funny because I have a client who does goat milk soap, and she actually wanted to get rid of additional goat milk before it spoiled, and her soap business has took off. So like, what's next? Is it soap, milk and honey soap or something? It's just,
oh my gosh,
the possibilities are endless. You just have to not constrain yourself to a box.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So wherever you are now in business, always look for other opportunities, how you can utilize your business, obviously, and just expand from there. Now, another topic that you also have here, and I'm quite excited about this, is something about, you said, stop stop devaluing yourself and other female entrepreneurs. So tell us a little bit about that and your seeing behind and your reasoning behind it.
Yeah. So I love bartering. Let me first say that. I think there is nothing better in this world than bartering. And if the IRS is listening to this podcast, I apologize. But I think we should honestly go back to a bartering system. And it's funny because it's actually kind of spiraled out of one of the bartering relationships that I did have. And it was interesting because this is a woman who I was working with, was very, very big into saying she empowers females and like she's all about female empowerment and expansion and female business growth. And she was talking to me and she goes, you charge that much per hour for your consulting? And I was taken aback a little bit. I said, yeah, this is why, like I have 15 years of experience. I have multiple degrees. Like I've ran multiple successful companies. Like, yeah, this is why I value myself at this rate. And it was interesting because as I started looking at the industry, I'm watching it happen kind of in multiple areas at multiple different times, whether it's with bartering, whether it's with people asking for collaborations for freebies, whether it's like all of these different pieces that are coming up. And what I realized is as I was kind of looking at the landscape of the industry, I realized that as someone is devaluing someone else, it's straight projection.
Yeah.
So it's straight saying, I don't value myself enough to value your time at what you're asking for. So it's funny because I've gone kind of down this path now with a little bit of what I've coached and what I've spoken about at different conferences, and really looked at and said, hey guys, like this is a huge issue we have as a women-based industry and business, because you go to a guy, they're not going to devalue themselves. They're going to overcompensate and say, oh yeah, for you, it's, $1,200 an hour for coaching. It may have been 600. Where for us, we're like, oh, you can't do 600. Like, let's talk about like 125 an hour. Like, why the heck are we doing that? We're keeping ourselves stuck in this box of like not being able to become as profitable, as successful as we maybe could have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I always say to the students that I coach as well is, in particular, because some of them start up creating online products or services, and then they say, should I give a discount or should I bring the price down? And I always say, rather than bringing the price down, think about the value, the additional value you can offer. And I always use this kind of like difference between price and value, because I think it's so important for people to realize that you've got to value yourself in order to justify that price, but also, rather than bringing it down, add more value. And time again, it's always worked when people do that.
Yes. And it's funny because I'm seeing that in the industry as well now. It's starting to switch a little bit more. There are still plenty of people out there who will just discount. I don't even know. A program might start at $97 and then go to $197 and then go to $997 and kind of continue to spiral up. And for me, I'm like, well, maybe we do a value, like maybe we had an extra $100 product to that early bird special. And then maybe an extra $50 product to like that mid special. And then maybe, like just kind of tier it out that way.
Yeah.
And that seemed to work really, really well as well, where they're still getting the value that they're putting towards the product, the service, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But they're not feeling like, because you also start to get resentful in that spiral. Like if you're like people don't like to talk about that, but you genuinely start getting a little resentful when you're like, I valued this at $997, but I'm offering a discount for $197. But you put all that work forward, you put all the kind of creation time, the money, the investment, you start to get a little resentful if you don't sell your quote unquote target number.
Yeah. No, it is so true. And then also you start feeling a little bit like, I'm not worth it. You don't say it to yourself, but in the back of your mind, that little sentence is sometimes running there. And it's even happened to me, even when I started my business. Oh my gosh. I thought the first time I launched my course, didn't sell a thing, obviously for so many other reasons, because I didn't do the proper marketing. And then I thought, oh, let me discount it. So I discounted it, didn't sell a single thing. And I was like, okay, there's something wrong here.
You're like, do I discount it again?
But this is where I realized I made one of the biggest mistakes, which obviously is in marketing. But after that experience, like you said, you feel so devaluing yourself that I just realized I don't want to go down that route again. So I just decided I'm not discounting any more of my products or services.
Ever. No, and I feel like too, being female, again, kind of bringing it back to the female entrepreneur space, one of the core beliefs of so many women are, I'm not enough.
Yeah.
So things like that tie directly back to a core belief of like, well, I should discount. Well, I should offer free. Like, and it's funny because I catch myself too. I had a client who didn't pay for coaching. She paid for the marketing agency, but she actually told me she was upset because she didn't get the coaching that she was expecting. So did I have to do anything? Technically, no. Yeah. Like it was out of scope of service. It's not something she bought. But for me, I was like, this is the way that she's viewing me. It kind of pulls back into that I'm not enough. And I offered her a free hour of my time sitting there coaching her and like working strategy with her. Granted, that was, a couple of years ago. She now became a paying client. We've expanded, a lot, but it was something that I was like, it was partially investing in her and partially holding myself accountable to like, quote unquote, being enough.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the piece there that too, it ties back to just core beliefs of so many women.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said, there's not enough people talking about it. I think people need to realize that this is an actual thing. It is happening and people need to expand on that more and learn from that. Okay, so there's another topic that you've got here, and I love all of this. I think they're fantastic. And it's more about balancing business and life. And this is also a big one, especially for women in business. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's funny because I actually did a podcast on my show that was called Three Businesses and a Toddler. And it was the most listened to, and it's still the most listened to podcast month over month. And I think it's true because it really resonates with people of how we have this balancing act of life. And we want to be, as women, we want to be really good at kind of like quote unquote or hashtag all the things. Like we want to be able to wake up and put on makeup and do our hair and have our kids be happy and fed and safe and, you know, have the house be spotless and have dinner on the table at 6 p.m. and like have a flawless, super smooth bedtime. Like that any of that ever happens. But we don't give ourselves like that piece to actually be able to like start balancing business in there. So what I was talking to the girls about in my show is there's not a right or wrong way to do things. People say like, a lot of people will be like, I'm in business because I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And if that works for them, great. I kind of flipped the script on that and said, I'm a business owner first because that's what provides me the opportunity to be the type of mom that I want to be. So I didn't have childcare for the first 14 months of my daughter's life. And I ran two businesses and I was launching the third of the cookie company.
My goodness.
Not advised, not recommended, not balanced. Really started not taking care of myself, started not taking care of my health, my household, like any of the things that I truly value. And it really took kind of her going into childcare and me pausing and saying, is this truly in alignment with the way that I want to live? Is this truly in alignment with like what I want to be offering to the world? And is this in alignment with honestly how I'm coaching and showing up for my clients and my daughter? And I kind of ripped everything apart and said, no, it's not. And kind of retooled my schedule to really now work for me, where I said no to a really, really popular podcast because she only records at times that I don't have childcare. I'm not willing to sacrifice my mommy daughter time to get on a really cool podcast. That's just not the season that I'm in. It's not the balance that I want to be in. Does that suck sometimes? Absolutely. But does it also feel empowering? Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you can decide, you can say yes and no to your time. Your time and your schedule is what makes you tick, basically.
Exactly. And it's funny because I read the book. It's a Christian-based book, but it's called The Best Yes. And even though it's Christian-based, it kind of talks about things that are like, you know, offered by God, or but you could, you know, use universe, source, etc., whatever the case is for you. You're trying to figure out what in the season that you're in is your best yes. And that really like kind of hit home and resonated with me because I'm like, I am saying just yes to all the things. And I'm honestly laying down in bed at night crying and just exhausted. It wasn't working. So kind of retooled that in the past really year, and now have gotten to a really awesome place where, you know, I am running 3 businesses 24 hours a week. I am spending a ton of extra time with my daughter. We're doing like literally Monday was an aquarium day. Like Monday should be a work day, and forever like people say Monday's a work day. I'm like, no, Monday was an aquarium day because I had her. Did I work? Yeah, I did the nap time hustle thing and we got it done. But really like making my schedule work for me and the time that I'm in, and create what my version of balance is. My version of balance might not be your version of balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing, if you don't mind, Lee, that I would like to add to it, because us as females, you know, we have that kind of concept where the household needs to be run and you know, the children needs to get fed and go to school on time and all those kind of things. When I started my business working from home, I mean, I was hustling, like you say, every single day. My husband would come home at night and the kitchen was still a mess. And I would feel so bad. I would think, I'm the most horrible wife. I can't even clean up the kitchen. So I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I haven't even had time to do the dishes. And I'm standing there doing the dishes. And he took me by the shoulders one day and he said, stop apologizing. You are running your own schedule. You need to stop apologizing. You do things the way you want to do. And I was like, yeah, that's very true. Why do I keep on apologizing for not doing the dishes? But I find that is so true for any women in business in particular, because we run the household. We want to make sure the kids are okay. We want to make sure the husband is happy. We want to make sure our parents are happy. And you feel like you're juggling so many balls at a time that, you know, you need to come up with a schedule that, like you say, there's no right or wrong. It is just entirely up to you as to what works for you. So I hope that hits home for a lot of women. So, and also if you're, sorry, go on.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, and then as you expand your business naturally too, there are things that are not worth your time doing.
Exactly.
There just aren't. Like for me, I've had both. I've had the big shiny office for my marketing agency. We're all virtual. Why the hell did I spend that amount of money for an office building? I have no idea. But now we're actually working back out of the house, and I have my assistant, my executive assistant who comes in, and I have interns that come into my house. And for me, it fits like my lifestyle, the balance that I want a little bit better. But then B, that whatever $4,800 I was paying towards a lease price, maybe for me, it's not. I like a clean house. I am super OCD. Maybe for me, instead of paying that $4,800 for the lease price, if I work from home, I have someone come in and clean my floors and clean my kitchen.
Yeah.
Much more in alignment with the way that I want to live, and much cheaper than paying for a location that no one ever even visited. All of my clients are virtual. It's just funny that like we kind of have these things that we like get into a position because someone said like, oh, you're successful when you have an office. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'll just go buy a space. That's someone else's definition, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I find it as well. You know, it's so important, like you say, that when you get into that stage of your life where you realize your business is doing well, i.e. start paying somebody, like you say, get an assistant or get somebody to start come and cleaning your house for you. Because if the time you're using to do that, oh my gosh, it's going to cost you so much more in the future. In order to, to try and rather use that time and develop your business. So for any women out there, if you're listening to this and you get that feeling where you feel like, I'm not a good wife, oh my gosh, I can't do this, I can't do that because I don't have the time. Get somebody to do it for you. There's no right or wrong. All you're doing is you are putting on a proper mindset and you're just going out there and you are concentrating on your business. So number one, you can get more time to do the things that you want to do and that you have fulfillment in your life. And that's what it's all about.
And it's funny because I feel like via podcast, Henrietta is literally reaching through and grabbing your shoulders and taking you guys.
Yeah, like if I could, I will.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say, just as a prime example, like yesterday I had someone come in and clean my house. And I had 2 calls that I was on, both of them sold for just basic like audits for their business. I made $2,400 because I wasn't cleaning my house.
Exactly.
I spent $100 to get my house cleaned and I profited $2,300.
Yeah.
So like if you can give yourself that example of what else can I be doing that's actually income generating activity while I'm paying for something else, it's just, that's where your business starts to really, really level up and take off. Yeah. And like, I want to tap onto a little bit about what you said about hiring someone.
Yeah.
There's all these formulas. There's all these, like, you should hire someone when you can pay them and you have their salary 3 months in the bank and like all this, like best practice, most ideal scenario type stuff. And I like to say, like, you should hire the next person when you can pay 70% of their salary. Because adding on that additional person, that's where I've seen the kind of leaps in growth in my business. Where like I add on my development team, we went from, 100,000 to 300,000. So then adding on, an executive assistant, we went from 300,000 to 5. Like seeing where these little things are that we can actually switch and pivot in our business. Like that's where I would say like take the leap before you know where the next 7 steps are.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. And this is something that I always say, my daily motto is nothing will happen unless I make it happen. But at the same point, you constantly have that logic that just jumps in and you think, oh, do I need to do this? Because, it doesn't quite make sense yet. But I mean, if it is something that you feel in your gut is right, i.e., do you feel you're ready now to get a VA? By all means, do it. The logic might not make sense just yet, but it will. It will work out in the end and you will make it work out.
Exactly. I love that. You will make it work out, as it should be a quote.
Yeah. Oh, Cassandra, I absolutely love it. And the other thing I want to say is I love your Instagram account. Oh my gosh, it
Thank
is
you.
so great. I follow you every day, and I love all the little things that you've got, the pictures that you've got coming up. They're just so fresh, and I want to say this as well, because I feel this is one of those things that is so important, especially in these days. So many people have kind of, and this is me being very frank, but you get so many pictures of women either being an entrepreneur, but they're coming out of a jet airplane, or they're driving in this limousine. And
Uh-huh.
I think they're kidding themselves here. But at the same time, I think if I look at your pictures, number one, they're so natural. And it feels like I can just immediately relate to you. And it feels that there's just this connection, like you're true, you're honest, and you're just the perfect person to talk to and to work with. And that's part of what made me draw to you in some senses, in order to see if you wanted to come on my podcast. So thank you so much for that and accepting my invitation. But my point that I want to get to is, wherever you are in your business and whatever you're doing, I am going to put a link to Cassandra's Instagram account, which is really great. But go and have a look at what Cassandra does. It's really fantastic. But whenever you portraying yourself as an individual or as your business, just be natural. Don't try and overcomplicate things. Don't try and hype things up, and don't go and tell lies. If you don't have a jet aircraft, then pretend you've got one. But yeah, I think from that point of view as well, is so many people know these days when people are talking nonsense, and I will say the BS word, but I won't. So many people know when things are nonsense and they're fake. So from an honest point of view, I just love talking to women like yourself, who is just coming from a point of sincerity and honesty, and who's literally walked the road and just can share everything. So thank you so much for sharing your story today. It's been an absolute honor. One thing I do, before we wrap up, one thing I do want to say is you've got 3 mentorship programs running. Would you like just to tell us a little bit about those 3 mentorship programs, what they are, and then we'll link all of them to the show notes as well.
Yeah, I'll actually go ahead and just talk about my favorite.
Yes, please do, by all means.
You're probably not supposed to have favorite, business, whatever lines of business, versus you're not supposed to have favorite children, but I definitely have a favorite. And the favorite that I actually do is just a 4-month commitment. It's actually called a profit mentorship. And reason being is you get the most transformation, I believe, out of that mentorship. Just because I hit kind of that woman who is already starting to be a little successful, maybe making 25 to 50,000 in their business. And we just exploit that to a lot of the women after that 4 months hit over the 6 figures, hit over sometimes 2 and 3,000, 300,000. So for me, it's a 4-month mentorship. It's a lot of one-on-one time. It's Voxer support. It's literally like waking up in the middle of the night going, oh shoot, I have a launch tomorrow and I forgot to do blah, 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 and Voxing me and having that conversation. So really a lot of open access, and it's to work on any part of their business that they want to see increased profit in. So I have a client that's going through it right now who owns a blanket company, and we just created it's a social entrepreneur company. So she gives back to domestic violence shelters. Amazing, amazing company. And we just created an affiliate program that's launching. And she already on day 1 had 50 affiliates sign up and already was seeing sales of increased profit.
That's fantastic.
So just
that's
stuff
really great.
that is like that actually has a direct impact in their business. And for me, what I love about this mentorship is it's 4 months. It's super low commitment. If you don't like me in 4 months, you can more than welcome leave, find a different coach, like take your business and good luck. But most of my women actually stick with me for longer. But they only have that 4-month initial commitment, which is good for me, not loving commitments, and then good for my clients as well. So, and we've just seen amazing, amazing growth out of every woman who has gone through that program.
Fantastic. And there's some great reviews on your website as well that I saw about some of these women, which is absolutely amazing. I read all of them. So apart from the Profit Mentorship being your favorite one, you also have the Align Mentorship and the Impact Mentorship. And we can link to all of those, or just the Profit Mentorship, whichever you feel is better for the show notes.
We can totally link to all of them. The Align, honestly, is just based on quarterly business reviews. It's like having a fractional CFO who's really vested in your business, just to say, hey, like, are these plans, what I'm planning on doing for Q4, accurate? Like, is there anything else I should be looking at? Like, really things of that nature. And then the impact is a little crazy. It's the first of its kind where I combined all of Tola's services from the marketing agency and my coaching services into one package.
Wow.
So it's just a super long program. They get everything. It's business in a box. Everything from a website to ads to you name it, social media strategy to social media growth hacking to a little bit of everything, all kind of combined and packaged into one big old program.
That's fantastic. That's really amazing. Oh, well, I just loved having this conversation with you. It was so, so amazing. And from your point of view, is there anything in addition that you would like to add? Anything in addition that you would like to tell all the listeners and viewers?
Nothing that comes to mind off the top of my head, to be honest with you. Just honestly, I always like to encourage women to take that leap, to try it, to test it out, to see if it works, but to figure out truly what lights them up. Because honestly, guys, like, your business, you will be working in day out. And there's a lot of times where even as a business owner, you're like, I want to quit my business. I've said this multiple times. I'm like, I don't like what I'm doing. And that's really where you have the pivot. And just knowing that and having faith that you know that you can start in one area, but not end up in that same area. You can take it wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much, Cassandra. It's been an absolute dream. And for every one of you who's either viewing this video or listening to the podcast, all of Cassandra's notes and her website, all the links, everything will be on my show notes, so you can go and check out Cassandra's work. But apart from that, Cassandra, thank you so much for your time being here with me on the podcast. I hope in the future we'll definitely have some more and we can hear some more from you and what you're doing. But I really appreciate your time being here with us. And maybe, who knows, I'll come to Huntersville in some time and we'll end up having lunch or something together.
I know, that's crazy. It's so funny. I don't know if that part will be in the podcast, but just to like have that connection is insane.
I know, it is. Oh, well,
thank you so much for having me.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.